Welcome to Pastor's Chat today. Well, we're looking at Luke chapter 10, where Jesus is telling the story of the Good Samaritan. We read the entire story yesterday. I hope you'll read it over and again. And there's so many lessons that we can learn from it and apply to our own individual lives. We mentioned yesterday about the word certain, how Jesus was very specific about the different characters in the story. A certain lawyer, a certain man went down from Jericho, or from Jerusalem to Jericho. A certain priest came down that road. Then a certain Samaritan we saw there. And then we noticed this question the man asked, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And man, that's a great question to think about. What shall you do? What shall I do? What can we do to have eternal life? And what shall it profit a man in Mark chapter 8 if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? What's more important than eternal life? Now remember, eternal life is not living forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Eternal life is the life of God himself living in us. Jesus said in John chapter 17 in his prayer that they may know you, Father, the same way that they may know me, the same way they know the Father. And Jesus said, and this is eternal life. And my friend, it's eternal life to know God in a personal and a very real way. And so he asked the right question, just like the young rich ruler did. And Jesus said, well, what are you read in the law? Now, this man was a lawyer, which meant not he was a lawyer knowing the law of the land. He knew the law of God. He knew the law of Moses. He's very expert in that law of Moses. And so Jesus said, what do you read? And he summarized it just like Jesus did when Jesus was asked in Matthew chapter 22 by another lawyer, which is interesting. And there the lawyer asked him, what is the great commandment in the law? And it's interesting. Jesus was asked, what is the great commandment? And Jesus gave the same answer that this man gave. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and spirit. And then, of course, the second one is the same, and that is to love your neighbor as yourself. And I think this is so powerful because basically Jesus is not saying the second and least importance is to love your neighbor as yourself. It's of equal importance is the way he's saying in the context. And because if you love God, you will love your neighbor. You will love your neighbor in the same way that you think you love God, because Jesus makes it clear if you don't love your brother and you don't really love God, no matter what you say. And so he's making it clear we love our neighbor, which is an expression of our love for God. It shows our real relationship with God, that it's genuine. Now the guy wanted to say, well, who is my neighbor? So then that's when Jesus tells the story of the Good Samaritan. But he starts out with this certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho. Now Jericho was the Las Vegas of the day. It was where you go to have fun, to have pleasure, to get away, from Jerusalem. Jerusalem, of course, was up on a higher level, elevation. I can't even say that crazy word. And it was higher elevation. Let me get it right. Elevation. But it also was a place of worship, a place of prayer, a place of communion with God. And that's where this man was. He was up there communing with God, having fellowship with God, being amongst God's people. And he went down. And my friend, whenever you leave the place of prayer, you leave the place of communion with God, you leave the place of God's people, you're on your way down. And on his way down to Jericho, a place of pleasure, a place of sin, a place of the world, he fell among thieves. And remember, there is a thief called the devil. He's out to steal, to kill, and destroy. And he'll take your life from you and leave you half dead in the ditch. And that's what happened to this man. It happens to anybody who leaves fellowship with God. You end up half dead, living a life but not enjoying that life, because this world is not your home. My friend, if you're a believer, then this possibly is a picture of a believer leaving the place of fellowship. And then religion couldn't help him. The priest came by and the Levite came by. Religion came by, but they went on the other side, and we'll come back to that tomorrow. Well, God bless you, and I trust that as you think about these things, you'll make the right application to your own heart and soul, and you will live and love Jesus with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself also. God bless you, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day.